these years have been hard for you. Xianxia sighed slightly. Where is the person you are talking about? He did not see anyone here. She's here. Huang pursed her lips, dragged a small figure out from behind, squatted down and said, Yuner have come to see Sect Master Yang. Xianxia looked down and couldn't help showing a look of astonishment. Children? He really did not expect that the person Huang was talking about would be a child. Looking at her appearance, she is only about 6 or 7 years old, less than 3 feet tall, slender, with a yellow complexion, and she is clearly malnourished. The clothes she wears are also coarse linen, but they are neat and tidy without dirt and dust. The hair is still a little yellowish, not childish, but the eyes are round and energetic. This is not Huang child, because the two have no similarities in their faces, and as far as Xianxia understands, Huang has never given birth. Where does this little girl come from? The little girl seemed a little afraid and a little curious, hiding behind Huang, looking at Xianxia with wide, sullen eyes, but she didn't say a word. Huang persuaded her to show herself and say a few words, but she was not moving. She kept shaking her head, looking at Xianxia's face with a little vigilance. This gaze made Xianxia frown, and his heart became sour inexplicably. A child of this age should not understand anything, but she is actually wary of him, which means that she may have encountered something that scared her before, so she dare not get close to any strangers. Sect Master, forgive me, Yuner is still young. She still don't know the etiquette. Sect Master, please don't blame. Huang stood up and looked at Xianxia with a wry smile. It's okay. Xianxia slowly shook his head. Spiritual mind glanced around on this little girl, and said in surprise, already an initial element stage peak did you teach? N. Huang nodded lightly. Yuner is entangled to learn, so I taught some. Not bad, not bad. Xianxia expressed his approval. She had reached the peak of the initial element stage realm at a young age, which was impossible to achieve on the capital. And with Huang's financial resources, she probably unable to provide her with a very good cultivation environment and cultivation resources. In other words, the aptitude of this little girl is good. After hesitating, Xianxia asked, where are your parents? They has fallen 3 years ago. Huang replied sadly. Soon. Huang briefly talk about the little girl. The little girl's surname is Lin, full name Lin Yuner. Her father was originally a person of no sect and background, and her mother was originally a female disciple from the Sea Palace. Sea Palace is a big force in the Limitless Sea, and its reputation on the Limitless Sea is comparable to that of the Battle Sky Union and Thunder Typhoon sect in the inland. And Lin Yuner's mother seems to have some status in the Sea Palace. Originally, people like her had many choices if they wanted to choose a spouse, but things like love came about inexplicably. After meeting Lin Yuner's father, her mother fell in love and was out of control. The two fell in love with each other, and soon they decided to live their lives privately. This matter was known to the high level of Sea Palace, and Lin Yuner's mother was expelled from Sea Palace in anger. Even though they did so, the people in Sea Palace didn't embarrass her too much, and still acquiesced to her living in Seafront City. Since then, Lin Yuner's parents have become distressed couples, but her life is still moisturized and affectionate. But the cultivator not only living their life but also need to cultivate. The strength of the two is only in the Saint King stage, similar to Huang. Without the support of the sect, they can only find a way to go out to hunt sea beasts, hunting the core and fur bones in exchange for cultivation resources. It is for this reason that Huang met them and formed his small team with the husband and wife to act together. But on a trip 3 years ago, the three encountered a 8th order sea beast. Lin Yuner's parents fell on the spot, and only Huang escaped and returned to Seafront City. From then on, she raised Lin Yuner by her side. At that time, the little Lin Yuner was only 3 or 4 years old, and had just begun to think. It can be said that most of Lin Yuner's memories are Huang, and the knowledge she has learned is also taught by Huang, and her relationship with her is like a mother and daughter. And the reason why she was wary of strangers was really because her parents had borrowed some saint crystals from others when they were still alive. After the news of their fall came, the creditors came to the door and wanted to take Lin Yuner away to pay off the debt, but was fortunately blocked by Huang Wan and paid off the debt for her. In short, Lin Yuner's life experience is very miserable. She had lost her father and mother at a young age. If Huang Wan had not been taking care of her for 3 years, it would be unknown whether she would survive now. And this simple house was where Lin Yuner's parents used to live. After their death, Huang Wan stayed in order to take care of Lin Yuner. It turned out to be like this. After listening to Huang Wan's remarks, Xianxia nodded lightly, feeling pity in his heart. At this moment, Lin Yuner, who had been silent for a while, suddenly said, "Are you here to take Yuner away?" The voice was crisp and pleasing to the ears. During the questioning, a pair of clear eyes stared at Xianxia like a clear spring, without any impurities. Xianxia heard the words and said with a grin, "Yes, I am here to take you away." Lin Yuner didn't mean to be afraid, but tilted her head and thought about it. "Can you come back in a few years?" "Why?" Xianxia was curious about how such children think about problems. "Yuner will grow up very quickly, and in a few years she can go out to hunt sea beasts, and give you a lot of saint crystals, and you won't be able to spend all of it in your entire life." She obviously thought that Xianxia had come to collect debts again. Xianxia was taken aback, couldn't help laughing. Huang Wan also looked cramped in the side. Good, big courage, good spirit." Xianxia nodded in satisfaction. "So you don't take Yuner away? Yuner doesn't want to be separated from Aunt Huang now," Lin Yuner said crisply. As soon as she said this, Huang Wan's eyes were immediately covered with water mist. Although Lin Yuner was not her own, she has already regarded her as her own after getting along for a few years. Now that she hears such words, how could she be not moved? She couldn't help but hug the little girl. "Well, I'm here this time not only to take away Yuner, but also to take away your Aunt Huang. Is this good?" Xianxia pretended to be in a dilemma. "Oh, so you're a bad guy." Lin Yuner suddenly realized, her little hand stretched out and pointed at Xianxia and punched decisively. In the eyes of children, black and white are distinct, and everything that is unfavorable to them is all bad. Xianxia smiled without saying a word. "Sect master." Huang Wan looked at him hesitantly. "Well, needless to say, let's take her and go together." Xianxia smiled slightly, since it was not what he had previously guessed. It didn't matter if it was just a kid. "Thank you, sect master." Huang Wan was overjoyed. Although she also felt that Xianxia would not fail to agree to this request. If Xianxia really refused her, then she could only stay and take care of Lin Yuner. "Yuner, don't forget to thank the sect master for his kindness." Huang Wan pulled Lin Yuner's arms and pointed at Xianxia. "No, he is a bad guy. He wants to take Yuner away." Lin Yuner insisted on her judgment. Not only did she persist, but she also took the first 2 steps and threw a small fist towards Xianxia. The posture looks good, but the sight is unstable. Xianxia smiled and stretched out a hand, blocking it in front. Seeing this scene, Huang Wan also showed a helpless wry smile. Of course, she knew that Xianxia would not be angry with the childish words, and would definitely not hurt her because of it, so she didn't mean to intervene to stop it. With a bump, the small fist hit Xianxia's palm. Xianxia couldn't help but raise his brows. His expression of surprise appeared on his face. He seemed to have discovered something incredible. Lin Yuner was pushed back gently, and he provoked, "Too weak, come again." Her. Lin Yuner was a newborn calf who was not afraid of tigers, pursed her mouth and smashed her punch again. After a while, Lin Yuner was panting and looked at Xianxia with a gloomy look. How could a little girl at the peak of the initial element realm shake Xianxia? After a burst of fist, she had to accept this helpless reality. Xianxia's eyes were bright, looking at Lin Yuner as if he found a treasure. His face was full of excitement. "What's the matter?" Huang Wan looked at Xianxia suspiciously. "Have you not tried sparring with her before?" Xianxia asked, not answering her question. "No." Huang Wan shook her head slowly. "I'd only taught Yuner how to cultivate, but I haven't done anything with her." "No wonder." Xianxia pondered. Sect Master, is Yuner. What's wrong? Huang Wan suddenly became nervous. There is nothing wrong, you don't have to worry. Yang Kai slowly shook his head, with the corners of his mouth slightly raised, looking at Lin Yuner and said, it's just that this girl has a lot of strength. A lot of strength? Huang Wan was stunned. Forget it, I'll talk about it when I return to the sect. I won't be able to tell it clearly for a while, and I don't know the specific reason. Yang Kai didn't mean to explain, but just recalled the time he was fighting with Lin Yuner. The power coming out of the opponent's fist was indeed somewhat unusual. Although Lin Yuner already had the cultivation level of the initial element stage peak, she was too young to know how to use her Yuan Qi to fight, so the fists she waved were all her own power. And that kind of power is almost comparable to an ordinary brawny man who has not cultivated before. This is unbelievable. Where can such a powerful force come from a small girl of 6 or 7 years old with a thin body? Is it a gift or something? Although Yang Kai was very knowledgeable, he couldn't judge for a while, so he could only hide his doubts in his heart and plan to go back and talk about it. Yes. Huang Wan naturally wouldn't ask the bottom line, obeying with a nod. Although Lin Yuner subconsciously judged Yang Kai as a bad person, after Huang Wan's explanation, she no longer resisted. There was nothing to clean up, and this family Harem could be described as a mere 4 walls. Soon, Huang Wan took Lin Yuner's little hand and followed Yang Kai towards the center of Seafront City. To be continued. Huang Wan has lived here for several years, and she can barely be regarded as a local. She was naturally aware of the location of the Space Law Formation. With her, Yang Kai came to the palace where the Space Law Formation is located without any effort. Seafront City's Space Law Formation is open to the outside world, as long as you can pay enough Saint Crystals, but there are not many destinations that can be reached, only a few. After some consideration, Yang Kai chose Black Crow City as the next stop. It's not that Black Crow City is the closest to Flowing Flame Sandfield, but because Yang Kai has been to this city once, knowing that it is not far from Clean Sky Sect, as long as he can reach Black Crow City. He can use the power of Clean Sky Sect to easily teleport to the city closest to Flowing Flame Sandfield. This is also a rather helpless choice, but it also saves the most time. After paying a total of 600,000 Saint Crystals, Yang Kai and the 3 of them successfully stood on the Space Law Formation. When the light flashed, the 3 had disappeared without a trace. In Black Crow City, Yang Kai once came to the city with Xianxia, Wing and others. In this city, Yang Kai met Qianyu by chance and had a big fight in the Joyous Union Pavilion and redeemed her. He didn't mean to stay here for long. After inquiring about the direction, he took Huang Wan and Lin Yuner directly to a certain direction and flew away. 3 days later, in front of another city several times larger than Black Crow City, Yang Kai land. Sect Master, why did we come here? Huang Wan looked at the 3 characters above the huge city gate with a dazed expression. There are some acquaintances here, it is more convenient to transfer from here. Yang Kai explained lightly, glanced at Huang Wan's back, Lin Yuner, who was sleeping sweetly, and showed a smile. In the 3-day journey, although the little girl did not contribute, she was also exhausted. What's more, it was the first time she traveled far away, basically since she was born to the present. She never left Seafront City. So when she left Seafront City that day, she was very curious about everything around her. The rapid speed made her cheer, and she could dance happily when she saw wildflowers and grass outside, and found birds and butterflies. She can't wait to catch it for a while. Excitement is followed by fatigue. Sleeping in a mess. Let's go. Yang Kai greeted. Take the lead in walking towards the city. Black Ink Sea City. Adjacent to the general rudder of Clean Sky Sect, the importance of this city to Clean Sky Sect is basically equivalent to that of Heavenly Fate City to Shadow Moon Palace. Black Ink Sea City is also a city controlled by Clean Sky Sect. Shen Shidao invited Yang Kai to be a guest here many times. But there was no chance in time before, but this time he caught up. Not long after, Yang Kai came to the mansion of Black Ink Sea City Lord's mansion. This City Lord mansion can be regarded as one of the facade buildings of Black Ink Sea City. The natural construction is magnificent and majestic. In front of the City Lord mansion, there is a line of cultivators wearing black leather armor, each with solemn expressions, holding silver guns, looking majestic. Seeing Yang Kai and the three people, they were all paying attention, and one of them, who seemed to be the leader, yelled, "Stop, this is Black Ink Sea City Lord's mansion, and other people can't come near." This person has the cultivation base of the Third Order Saint King realm, and he has blocked Yang Kai in front of him as he speaks, looking at him vigilantly. Yang Kai grinned and clasped his fist slightly and said, "Hello friends, I am Yang Kai, come here to discuss something with your city lord. Can you tell him something for me?" "Looking for the city master?" The man frowned and his expression was a little impatient. All of the people who came here were looking for the city master. Of course he knew that Yang Kai would be no exception, but will the city master see them? If he report it without asking a clear question, he will be punished. However, Yang Kai is a void return stage, so he didn't dare to be too negligent. Otherwise, he would be blasted away as the cultivator with lower strength. "Do you know our city master?" the man asked. "I don't know." Yang Kai shook his head honestly. "Don't know?" The man was surprised. "But I know your sect master Gu Zhen." Yang Kai added. "Know the sect master?" This person was taken aback. The impatience on his face quickly receded, a look of shock. The sect master has been in retreat all year round. It is impossible for anyone to see him, even he has never seen him. On the side of the sect master, this guy named Yang Kai actually said he knew the sect master. Isn't he bragging? "Well, I also know your great elder Mo Yu." The person couldn't help taking a breath and looked up and down Yang Kai again, as if to re-examine him. He was able to know both the sect master and his own elder at the same time. That person's status must not be low, but why did he never seen this person? Although he was puzzled in his mind, he didn't dare to delay any more. The impatience on his face had already been put away, and he respectfully clasped his fist and said, "Then please wait for a while, I will go and inform City Master." "Thanks for the hard work." Yang Kai nodded slightly. After that person entered the City Lord mansion, in less than half a cup of tea time, a petite figure suddenly sprang out from the City Lord's mansion and instantly appeared in front of Yang Kai. After seeing Yang Kai, the person who sprang out couldn't help but said, "It's you Yang Kai, why did you come here?" "Miss Wu Ying?" Yang Kai was also a little surprised. He didn't expect that the first person to greet him from the City Lord's mansion was Lu Ying, but she seemed to be the only one, and Shen Shidao, who was inseparable from her, was not with her. But since she was an acquaintance, it was easy to handle. Yang Kai was still thinking about how to verify his identity with the City Lord he had never met before. "I'm passing by here, wanting to borrow the space law formation here, but why is Miss Wu Ying here? Where is Miss Shen?" Yang Kai asked strangely. "Senior sister Shen has been in retreat since coming back from Emperor Garden. As for why I am here, the City Lord of Black Ink Sea City is my father," Lu Ying replied with a grin. Yang Kai was stunned. He didn't expect that Lu Ying's status was not low. Usually she has been following Shen Shidao, but Shen Shidao's head is looking forward. Yang Kai thought she did not have high origin, and just a good disciple in Clean Sky sect. That's all, but he didn't expect her to have a big background. Since her father can become the City Lord of Black Ink Sea City, he is definitely a powerhouse in the Third Order Void Return stage. Presumptuous. As she was talking, there was a dignified low shout from the City Lord's mansion. Immediately, a white-skinned middle-aged man walked from there with a solemn expression, angry, and an unpleasant expression. "Sect Master Yang is the lord of a sect, why are you little girl talking?" This person is obviously Lu Ying's father, the City Lord of Black Ink Sea City. When she heard her father's reprimand, Lu Ying couldn't help but spit out her tongue, with a playful look on her face. Yang Kai laughed and said, "The City Master is serious. I have known Miss Wu Ying for a long time. They are friends of the same generation. The relationship between each other does not need to be due to Yang's opening a sect. When the middle-aged man heard the words, his eyes lit up. He seemed to be satisfied with Yang's humility and affinity, but he shook his head and said, "Nevertheless, the courtesy must not be abandoned. Yuner, greet the sect master Yang again." When Lu Ying heard it, the corners of her mouth were up to the sky, but her father's order could not be violated, so she could only salute again with an unwilling face. Yang Kai was helpless. Although he didn't talk a few words with this city lord, he also saw that he should be relatively rigid. After Lu Ying saluted, the middle-aged man clasped his fist and said, "Luzon, the Black Ink Sea City's city lord, have seen sect master Yang. City master is polite. I come here uninvited, and please don't take offense." Yang Kai hurriedly replied, "Sect master Yang is serious. You can come to Black Ink Sea City already. Make the Black Ink Sea City shine. Please go inside first. This Lu has passed the letter to the sect master and the great elder. The two of them will be here in half an hour. Please ask sect master Yang to wait for a while." "Okay." Yang Kai nodded lightly, but didn't care. He had rescued Ji Zhen and Mo Yu in the Emperor Garden. They would definitely come after hearing the news. This was within Yang's expectation. Entering the city lord's mansion, it was surrounded by the front of the road, extremely lively. Seeing the appearance of the three of Yang Kai and his party, Luxian arranged for them to take a bath and change their clothes. Yang Kai naturally wouldn't refuse this. It didn't matter if he was disgraced, but Lin Yuner and Huang Wan also made people look down on them. After some tossing, Yang Kai appeared in a palace refreshed and clean. At this time, Ji Zhen and Mo Yu, who had heard the news, had arrived. After meeting, they naturally inevitably exchanged greetings. After a while, the guest and host were seated, and Luzon had already prepared a banquet. The exquisite food and spirit fruit were presented one by one, making Lin Yuner, who had never experienced this kind of light, moved her index finger and gobbled it up. The frank little girl's performance was not only not annoying, but rather interesting. Lu Ying sat next to Lin Yuner and kept picking up vegetables for her, seeming to like this little girl very much. On the contrary, Huang Wan was very cautious here, and she never thought that one day she would be able to sit at the same table with some of the great figures of Clean Sky sect. After all, she was poor and destitute a few days ago, for the 5,000 saint crystals. Worried for hundreds, spirit pale and pleaded with others, but after a few days it was like she is completely reborn. She deeply knew that she could get this kind of treatment entirely because of Yang Kai, and she had mixed feelings for a while. A few hours later, the sky turned dark and the banquet was ended. Lin Yuner, who had eaten and drink enough, was taken by Huang Wan to rest, and only a few high-level officials such as Yang Kai and Clean Sky sect were left in the hall. "Miss Shen is back too?" Yang Kai took a sip of fragrant tea and asked with concern. "Thanks to Sect Master Yang, all three of us came back unscathed." Ji Zhen replied gratefully. This trip to the Emperor Garden was indeed a crisis, and the most dangerous one was the encounter with Yang Kai. There was a big battle. If Yang Kai hadn't come to the rescue at the critical moment, Ji Zhen and Mo Yu might have nothing to worry about, but Shen Shidao, who is the lowest in strength, would definitely not escape bad luck. However, after coming back, Shen Shidao entered a state of retreat. After all, she also gained something in the Emperor Garden. What's more, it didn't take long for her since being promoted to Void Return stage. She didn't even condense her own chi yet, so she naturally did not dare to delay time, so this time she did not go out to see Yang Kai. To be continued.